Welcome to this episode of the Harpreet Singh Show. I'm a host, Harpreet Singh from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. In today's program, we'll go over to Chandigarh, and today is that time of the month when Mr. Karanveer Singh Sidhu, IAS, shares his time with us and talks on various issues which are related to our mind, body, and spirit. Today, we'd like to talk to him on a very important topic, and that is how do you segregate sense of self from mind, body, and spirit? And he's going to talk to us from the Katha Upanishad today as to how searching for own thyself, how do we decode it and what needs to be known. So we'll talk in details with him on this particular issue. So let's welcome Mr. Karanveer Singh Sidhu to the program. Mr. Sidhu, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, Sat Sri Akal, good evening to all of you. Good to join you again.
It's always a pleasure to have you back every month, and people are really liking what you have been talking about from your wisdom and from the knowledge which you share with us from the Upanishads and Gita. So today, as I mentioned in the beginning, we would like to know from you today, what analogy would you like to relate to this particular aspect of life as to how do we segregate ourselves from the mind, body and spirit?
Any person who's an inward searching person and begins to question who am I, what's my true nature, why I'm there on this planet, ultimately begins to ask these inward looking questions. Is it my mind? Is it my intellect? Is it my soul? And is it my sense organs, my body? And how do I connect with the omniscient God, the Om, the universal consciousness? And it is in conception a kind of a difficult subject, because the person who wants to know is the person who's trying to know himself. So self-introspection, self-study in general is a difficult subject. And moreover, there are multiple type of interpretations and the type of terminology which is used, and there are no hard and fast definitions. So people sometimes do tend to get confused. The best analogy to understand this continuum of the body, which we can easily distinguish, then your sense organs, the 5 sense organs with which you perceive and interact with the universe, then comes your mind, which are mental faculties, the logic part of it, where you churn the numbers, take logical calculations and so on. And then is buddhi and vivek. Given the data which you've churned, you take a value decision with a discerning mind, which is very important. Then ultimately there is the intellect, you may call it the soul, the Atman, the inner substratum of your consciousness. And of course, finally is the universal consciousness, the Nirankar, in which we are all supposed to be immersed. Now, to understand till the body and sense organs, it is intuitively very simple to understand. This is my body, this is my hand, and these are my organs I see, but it is not me. But when you transition from your mind, your memory, your thinking faculties to your intellect, then somewhere down the line confusion sets in. And by far the best known explanation and understanding or analogy which scholars agree, and with my limited research I have been able to find, is what is given in the Katha Upanishad. Upanishad are literally the distilled philosophy of the Vedas, and they give you what is the ultimate gist of the philosophy of human life. So this actually is in nature of a conversation between a boy who's a very intelligent, smart, discerning boy, 12 years old, with none other than Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Of course, the background of that is another story for another day. But in this conversation comes a question where the boy asks a question which Yamaraj is bound to answer, because he's given away some boons to the boy. And he asks basically this: who am I? What is my purpose? What happens to a person after death? And so on. So there's this beautiful analogy which scholars have used, which Upanishads have used, and is normally used by us to understand. So what is called the chariot analogy. So chariot with horses, there is a Sarthi, a charioteer, and of course, you are the person who's the rider. So, what is what? Chariot is, of course, your body. It is something which must be in good shape. It is nobody's case, as far as ancient scriptures are concerned, that you shouldn't take care of your body. In fact, a healthy body is a condition precedent for all type of spiritual introspection. So it's like a chariot in a good shape. Your journey of life is going to be smooth if your chariot is in good shape. You will have a longer journey if you're able to preserve your body well. So it's the hardware, the chariot, that's your body. Now, who's going to be pulling this chariot in a particular direction? What interacts with the outside universe? So those are your sense organs. You see, you smell, you taste, you touch, you hear, and every input that comes in may pull you in one direction. Your eyes may see something, your ears may hear something, and you may smell aroma of food. You may be, impelled to go into the kitchen. So the horses are actually pulling the chariot. So the sense organs have been kind of metaphorically equated with the sense organs. So while the chariot is the body, the horses that pull the chariot, your body, are your sense organs. Now, as even in our Gurbani, it is said, Pancha ka guru ek dhyan. It's your mind that controls your senses. I mean, you can have a person standing right in front of you. I mean, if your mind is elsewhere, you may not be able to see that person. In a different context, there may be some very seductive distraction right in front of you, but if your mind is not interested, you will not be able to see. So therefore, the horses, which are your sense organs, have an inherent capacity of straying here and there. And these five sense organs, like five different horses, could tend to pull you in different directions and take you away from your ultimate mission of life. And even in normal day-to-day working, the project at hand, something you've said, I'm going to do it today, but the distractions enter into your mind through the sense organs. So short of closing the sense organs, which is a very passive way of doing, you close your eyes, don't hear anything, sit in a dark room, which a Karam Yogi, a person, a householder who's working for his daily bread cannot afford to do so. So how do you actually then take care of those senses, which are the horses?
Absolutely.
So the mind,
Mr. Sidhu, as you
is the
very rightly
reins.
said, that the mind has to be reined. But how is it to be reined? And how, using this analogy, we can understand how we can control our life. We'll talk about this. It's time for a short break. Let's go for a break. We'll be shortly back and we'll continue with our discussion. ਵੈਨ ਕਾਸਾ ਟਾਈਲ ਅਤੇ ਸਟੋਨ ਸ਼ੋਰੂਮ ਇੱਕ ਐਸੀ ਥਾਂ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਲਸੇਲ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਤੇ ਹਰ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਟਾਈਲਸ, ਸਟੋਨ, ਮਾਰਬਲ, ਬੈਕਸਪਲੈਸ਼, ਮੋਜ਼ੇਕ ਆਦਿ ਵਾਜਬ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਤੇ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਟਾਲੀਅਨ, ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼, ਚਾਈਨੀਜ਼ ਪੋਰਸਲਨ ਜਾਂ ਸਿਰੈਮਿਕ ਟਾਈਲਸ ਜਾਂ ਮਾਰਬਲ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਆਰਡਰ ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਲੀਅਰੈਂਸ ਤੇ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਮਾਲਕ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਟਾਈਲਸ ਇੰਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਜਿਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਿੰਗਾਰ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਕਰੋ 13042 84 ਐਵਨਿਊ ਸਰੀ। ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 604 330 7363 604 330 7363। ਦਰਦ ਤੋਂ ਆਰਾਮ ਐਲੋਪੈਥਿਕ ਦਵਾਈਆਂ ਖਾਣ ਨਾਲ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਸਾਈਡ ਇਫੈਕਟਸ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਸਪਲੀਮੈਂਟਸ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਦਰਦ ਨੂੰ ਜੜੋਂ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਰਕਸ ਫਾਰਮੇਸੀ ਦੇ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਟਾਫ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਹਰ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਹਨ। ਅਪਾਇੰਟਮੈਂਟ ਬੁੱਕ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 604 596 1774 ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਕਰੋ 8035 120 ਸਟਰੀਟ ਡੈਲਟਾ। ਦਰਦ ਨੂੰ ਜੜੋਂ ਖਤਮ ਕਰੋ।
ਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਰੀ, ਡੈਲਟਾ, ਰਿਚਮੰਡ, ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਜਾਂ ਵੈਂਕੂਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਵਾਂ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਰੈਨੋਵੇਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ? ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਤਜਰਬੇਕਾਰ ਬਿਲਡਰ, ਇੱਕ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟਿਵ ਇੰਟੀਰੀਅਰ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਰ ਦੀ, ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਾਰ ਸਕਣ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਜਾਂ ਸੰਦੀਪ 604 825 9295 ਉੱਤੇ।
Once again, welcome back to the program. Today we are talking to Mr. Karanveer Singh Sidhu, and it's a very important question which has been always intriguing us. Who am I? And how to control the mind? That is what the focus is all about today. We'll get him shortly back, but before that, we'd like to tell our sponsors with whose support this program reaches you. ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸਰੀ ਕਲੋਵਰਡੇਲ ਤੇ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਵੈਲੀ ਦੇ ਟਾਪ ਰਿਐਲਟਰ ਜੈ ਸੁਬਰਾਏ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਬਲੂਪ੍ਰਿੰਟ ਰੀਮੈਕਸ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ ਆਪਣੀ ਇੰਟੈਗ੍ਰਿਟੀ, ਕਮਿਟਮੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਕਾਰਨ, ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਘਰ ਜਾਂ ਕਮਰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਖਰੀਦਣੀ ਜਾਂ ਵੇਚਣੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੌਖਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਕਲਾਇੰਟ ਮਹੱਤਤਾ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਲਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜੇਕਰ ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਾਲ 24 ਘੰਟਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਵਾਪਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੁਟਾਉਂਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ $500 ਨਗਦ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਮੁਫਤ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਵੈਲਿਊਏਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਸਲਾਹ ਲਈ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 7789947450 778 994 7450। ਈਮੇਲ ਹੈ joe@jaisobrai.ca ਅਤੇ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਹੈ jaisobrai.ca। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਤੇ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਦਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਐਕਮੀ ਗਲਾਸ ਲਿਮਟਿਡ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਫਰੇਮਲੈਸ ਗਲਾਸ ਰੇਲਿੰਗਸ, ਕਸਟਮ ਵੁੱਡ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਟਸ, ਸ਼ਾਰ ਤੇ ਟਬ ਡੋਰਸ, ਸ਼ਾਰ ਸਲਾਈਡਰਸ, ਬੇਵਲਡ ਵੁੱਡ ਐਂਡ ਮੈਟਲ ਟ੍ਰਿਮ ਮਿਰਰਸ ਤੇ ਕਸਟਮ ਗਲਾਸ ਵਰਕ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਰਤ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹਨ। ਵਾਜਬ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ, ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ, ਕਰਾਫਟਸਮੈਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਤਾਂ ਹਾਈ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਜਾਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ। ਆਪਣੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਜਾਂ ਰੈਨੋਵੇਟ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਘਰ ਲਈ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 6045438777 604 543 8777। ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਚਨ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਬੈਸਟ ਹੋਮ ਕਿਚਨ ਕੈਬਨਿਟਸ ਲੋਅਰ ਮੇਨਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣੀ ਪਛਾਣੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਕਸਟਮ ਹਾਈ ਐਂਡ ਘਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮਲਟੀ ਯੂਨਿਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਕੈਬਨਿਟ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਬੈਸਟ ਹੋਮ ਕਿਚਨ ਕੈਬਨਿਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖੋ। ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸੁਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਢੇਸੀ ਨੂੰ 6045918171 604 591 8171। ਸੋ ਮੁੜ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਨੇ ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦਾ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੋਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। So Mr. Sidhu, before the break you were mentioning as to how to rein the mind, because that is, again, we have got a question also from Gurpreet Singh and he's similarly asking as to, you have very rightly said, you're talking about this analogy, but then again the question is, you are the charioteer, which means the mind is the charioteer, and how to rein it?
No, actually, the mind is not the charioteer. In fact, that's the tricky point of it. So, the horses, as we said, are the senses, and
Right.
the reins, the lagam, is the job of your mind. So, mind has to take control of the senses, and mind, like the reins, cannot be pulled in different directions. Your mind cannot be telling you to hear something. You're trying to hear part, and at the same time, you're smelling something and you're seeing something. So if your mind is sending contradictory signals and trying to harness the power of the senses, the horses in different directions, your chariot of life will get off course. So the mind, which is the mental faculties, which is the man as we call, which is also a very chanchal thing. We'll come to how to control the mind. So there's a hierarchy. So first the mind has to take care of the senses, and the horses are taken care of by the mind, the mental faculties, and they keep you in track. If you're preparing for a competitive examination, you're very clear, your mind is telling, hey, this is the time to study. If you're at the job, you want to be at the job and you want to be doing that job and not be distracted. If you're in middle of your meditation or your part, your mind is telling the senses to focus and concentrate. So those are the reins. But the question is, who is pulling the reins? Who's the charioteer? The charioteer is what is called your intellect, the buddhi or the vivek. Now, this is something which tells you is your value system. Your mind can be a great mind and your senses can be great senses, but your buddhi and vivek, instead of making you a big or a accomplished software programmer, may make you a hacker trying to hack into a bank and get some bitcoins out of someone's account and put it into your own. So therefore, the senses and the mind can work in different directions unless it is guided by your discerning buddhi and vivek, which we call as intellect. So it's very important that your value system should be very strong as to do the good, to be righteous, and to accomplish what is the best for the largest number of people. You're doing, of course, your duty, your dharma, as they say. And we've, in our previous talks, have distinguished between dharma as not being religion, but your pious calling, your higher calling. And although the results will come, they are not within your strength and power. They will come. But those results are something not for your personal benefit, they are for a larger cause. So your buddhi and vivek is the charioteer, and ultimately the charioteer is the person who's controlling the reins, the mind, and the mind is in turn controlling the senses. So the hierarchy is that your mind, which is very chanchal, has to have a sense of value system of being what is right and what is wrong, because a sharp mind and sharp senses, if not backed up by a good value system of your intellect, of your buddhi and vivek, can actually go astray and use those faculties against the society, virtually to kind of commit criminal offenses.
Right.
So that is up till the hierarchy where we are talking in terms of your buddhi and vivek. But that is the charioteer,
Yeah.
who's pulling the reins, who's controlling the horses, the senses. But ultimately, who is the rider for whose benefit is this entire tam jam, this paraphernalia, this chariot, these horses, these reins, the charioteer? And mind you, your mind is a charioteer. He's just like your driver, your chauffeur. If your chauffeur is tired, he's sleepy, he's drunk, then irrespective of your mind being good, your horses and chariot being good, you can be led astray. So it is therefore your Atman, your innermost substratum, your soul, your inner conscience, which is actually then also guiding your buddhi and vivek. And therefore, although you are allowing your charioteer to do the driving and you're not taking, so to say, the wheels every now and then, but the charioteer, the intellect, the buddhi and the vivek does know that there is an inner conscience which will often prick you when there are ethical, legal, social dilemmas facing you, and that internal GPS will always show you the right direction. So this is a beautiful analogy, the chariot being your body, the horses being the sense organs, the reins being your manas, the mental faculties, the buddhi and vivek discerning decisions, value system goes into your intellect, that is the charioteer. And finally, last but not the least, you are the charioteer. It's your ride. Are you going to take a path of player and pelf and ultimately meet an eventual death sooner or later and be into the vicious circle of birth and rebirth? Or are you going to take a path of righteousness, follow your dharma, your swadharma, not a dharma which is imposed by anyone else, and ultimately get onto the path of the salvation? So that is what the Atman, the inner core, the inner substratum is seeking. And all these are there to assist you, but they are not you. You are not them. They belong to you, they interact with you, but it's very important to understand that the body, mind, sense, intellect are different from that inner conscience, which we call a soul, which is supposed to be immortal.
Wonderful. Mr. Sidhu, I'm getting a lot of messages from people, so we would like to take a few of them. One of the questions I've received is from Mr. Ricky, and he says, how to sharpen your discerning faculty, what you have mentioned. Because many times he says that you know what is right and what is wrong, but still your mind still takes you away to the thing which is not in the right perspective also. So can you please answer this question?
In fact, this is a question which has been these dilemmas in a number of places. Lord Krishna or in Mahabharata, in Bhagavad Gita, these have come. And the thing is, it should be very clear that, and I have a separate talk on YouTube, maybe that's another subject for another day, but very shortly, my answer would be, we all are aware as to what is right or wrong. I mean, it is not as if we are kids and we know that we really are not aware whether candy is good for us or not, is good for health or not. We are, like Duryodhan said, I really know that what I am doing is not correct. But there are what are called vasanas in our holy scriptures, the internal inherent tendencies, whether they are on account of the karmas that you've been doing, whether they're habits, or if you believe in the previous birth, they are the carryover of the previous births. But inherent tendencies, the DNA hardwired, what you at this moment carry along with you, those create internal tendencies and propensities to act in a particular fashion, which may not always be correct.
Right.
You know, your mind knows. Someone says something which makes you angry. If you are a person who's going to explode, once you start shouting, then things are out of the control. But here is the secret which our holy scriptures say. What is right or wrong? once you react, respond, things are beyond your control. But within your propensities and tendencies and within the outside ostensible action, there is a very small window of opportunity, which is narrow, where someone will say, do you go and hit back at that person, or do you simply smile and ignore? In that window of opportunity, which is narrow, that signal is always there. And a sharp mind, a mind which has been purified by meditation, by part, by whatever ishts that you have in your life, will tell you that all these things are ephemeral. So therefore, although the tendencies are there, you know what is right or wrong. There's a huge tendency. You know rasmalai is not good for you, and therefore you should not be eating it. But once it is in front of you, before you know anything, your hand goes and it's in your mouth.
Right.
But within those second or two, that's there, and you can that. And to help that, keep away from the distractions. I mean, the practical advice is that you can handle it on two ways. Keep away from the distractions and be, of course, within that window of opportunities, which is always there. Take the right decision.
Great.
But let us be honest to ourselves. We know what is right or wrong.
Absolutely.
And there is no question that we really are unable to distinguish. Every thinking individual of even an average IQ or intellect would know that.
But how much strength do we have at that time to take the decision? That is what matters. And that is why the
Absolutely, the window of opportunity is very narrow. It's more a question of timing.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Sidhu, again, time for a short break. We'll go for a break. We'll be back, and then we'll take some questions also. And also, we'll continue from here only as to, as you said, those distractions are at that time, how to control them. We'll talk a little bit about that also.
ਭਾਰਤ ਪੈਸੇ ਭੇਜਣੇ ਹੋਣ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਮੰਗਵਾਣੇ ਹੋਣ ਤੇ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਫੋਰੈਕਸ ਨੂੰ ਤਸੱਲੀ ਬਖਸ਼ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਰੇਟ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਗਾਰੰਟੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 6043491313 ਉੱਤੇ।
ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਨਵੇਂ ਤੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਅਪਲਾਈਐਂਸਸ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਸਟੋਵ, ਅਵਨ, ਫ੍ਰਿਜ, ਵਾਸ਼ਰ ਡਰਾਇਰ, ਮਾਈਕ੍ਰੋਵੇਵ, ਫ੍ਰੀਜ਼ਰਸ ਜਾਂ ਡਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ਼ਰ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਪਹੁੰਚੋ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਮ ਅਪਲਾਈਐਂਸਸ ਤੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ 3 ਬ੍ਰਾਂਚਸ ਸਰੀ, ਐਬਟਸਫੋਰਡ ਤੇ ਚਿਲਵੈਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ। ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਜਬ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਤੇ ਅਪਲਾਈਐਂਸਸ ਮਿਲਣਗੇ। ਇਹ ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ ਤੇ ਇੰਸਟਾਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਪੈਕੇजेस ਫॉर ਬਿਲਡਰਸ ਐਂਡ ਹੋਮ ਓਨਰਸ। ਕਾਲ 6045904140 604 590 4140।
ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਮੈਨ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ? ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਮੋਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਓਨਰ ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਦਾ ਉਦਾਹਰਨ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਾਰ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਖ ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਮੋਟਰਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਸਰੀ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਟਰੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋੜ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੋੜੀਂਦੇ ਟਰੱਕਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗਾਈਡੈਂਸ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸਪੇਸ, ਮੋਡੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਫਿਊਲ ਐਫੀਸ਼ੀਐਂਸੀ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਧਿਆਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਟਰੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਟਰੱਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਟੌਰ।
Once again, welcome back to the program. Today we are talking to Mr. Karanveer Singh Sidhu, IAS from Chandigarh, and we are talking about how to find your own self, how to understand that what is the purpose of life, who am I, these basic questions which have been intriguing us forever. Well, the time limit is there in these programs, but if you want to talk in details and learn more, you can also subscribe to Mr. KBS Sidhu, IAS on YouTube, and over there he has different talks which he talks with other on his own also, and with various other channels. He puts it over there also. Before we get him back, let's bring our sponsors, and we'd like to let you know that today's program has been brought to you with the support of AMC Insurance. If you're looking for home, auto, travel, business, life or recreational insurance, you can depend upon AMC Insurance. They have 9 offices to serve you in Lower Mainland, and they're open 7 days a week from 8:30 a.m. till 9 p.m. Phone number is 604-507-6666. 604-507-6666. Our next sponsor is Aheer Transportation Group. They have been in the transportation and storage industry since 1993, and their motto is "Your cargo is our responsibility." So if you want to send your products anywhere in Canada, you can depend upon them. Address is 8970 River Road, Delta. Phone number is 604-940-9511. Email is shinda@aheer.com and website is aheer.com. ਨਵਾਂ ਘਰ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਰੈਨੋਵੇਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ? ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਟਾਈਲਸ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਲਵਾਈਆਂ ਜਾਣ? ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਦੌੜ ਖਤਮ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਮਨ ਟਾਈਲਸ ਕੋਲ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਕੇ। ਗ੍ਰੇਨਾਈਟ, ਮਾਰਬਲ, ਪੋਰਸਲਨ, ਸੈਰਾਮਿਕ ਟਾਈਲਸ, ਕਿਚਨ, ਬਾਥ, ਸ਼ਲੂਟਰ ਦੇ ਕਸਟਮ ਸ਼ਾਰ ਬੇਸ, ਫਾਇਰਪਲੇਸਿਸ, ਡੈਕਸ ਤੇ ਦੀਵਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਟਾਈਲਸ ਲਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਰਤ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹਨ। हर बजट ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਅਮਨ ਨੂੰ 7783163510 778 316 3510। ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਪਾਂਸਰ ਹਨ ਤੋਲੀ ਜਿਊਲਰਸ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ 79 ਮੈਰਿਸਨ ਸਟਰੀਟ, ਹੈਰਿਸ ਪਾਰਕ, ਸਿਡਨੀ, ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਥਿਤ ਹਨ। ਡਾਇਮੰਡ, 골ਡ ਜੁਐਲਰੀ, ਓਪਲਸ, ਪਰਲਸ, ਜੈਮਸ ਜੇਕਰ ਲੱਭਣ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਭਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ 25 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਆਫ ਜੁਐਲਰੀ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਰਸ ਐਂਡ ਜਮੋਲੋਜਿਸਟ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈ 0422 401 199 0422401199। ਸੋ ਜੀ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਆਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਔਨ 에ਅਰ ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦਾ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੋਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਲਾਸਟ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ। So Mr. Sidhu, before the break, as you mentioned, you have to have that strength to understand. It's not that you don't know what is right or what is wrong, but the discerning facility has to be strengthened. So you talked about stay away from distraction. Could you also tell a little bit more as to what needs to be done? And also I have a question from Mr. Harry, and he says that when you talk about temptations, what would you say? What other steps can be taken to control the mind?
Basically, as we said, it's all a question of input and output. It's a question of a signal and a receiver. Either you take care of the signals or you take care of the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
As we've said, senses are always there. We don't have the option of shutting our senses and sitting in a Himalayan cave. That is not what a Karam yogi or any person who's working hard for a living is going to do, or any person who has a broader mission. He cannot do that. Of course, you can have retreats to calm down your mind, to improve your focus and concentration. So the senses are there. The most rudimentary, of course, is keep away from those distractions. If you're studying, why should the IPL cricket match be on? If you're studying, why should your mobile notifications be on? So you take care of the distractions at that particular stage. Then, of course, is the mind. The mind, as we have said, can control. So mind, when you calm down the mind with meditation, sitting quietly with yourself and trying to meditate on your inner core self, then you'll find that these small sounds, distractions, sights will gradually wither away. Thoughts will come like ripples in water. If you don't thoughts, they will go away. So that is calming down the mind. But more important, and the most important, is to have a value system which is very strong. When an ethical question comes, immediately your inner conscious is going to tell you, this is wrong, there's something not right about it. Now, if that point you get into your mind and your senses to say, hey, but in this country, this is legal, this is not illegal, it may be unethical, but it is not barred by the law of this country, and therefore I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of straying away from what really is ethical and your values and core values, which are embedded inside your buddhi and vivek, the discerning decisions. What you may be doing may not be illegal, but it may not be the right thing to do. And ultimately, of course, it's your Atman, the inner conscience, which will always guide you. So you have to go back to your ultimate purpose and mission in life. That is a question you got to ask yourself. Is what I'm about to do now in response to a temptation, a signal, an offer, an inducement, or a threat, whatever, there could be various type of things which are coming to you. Is it something which is likely to further my cause, my ultimate cause, my mission, my larger vocation in this life? And if you ask those questions, I think the answer would be very clear to you. But still, as I said, knowing fully well that the answer is there, that propensity to succumb to those temptations is always there. Those are the embedded vasanas, those are maybe the value system of the world around, and it is there. You have to take a decision, stick to it, and then move on to the next thing. Because once you have an idle mind and you're rethinking and revisiting those issues, maybe 3 times you take a right decision, and the 4th time you succumb under peer pressure, pressure of family, your own pressure, you saying this I'm doing not for myself, I'm doing it for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that you have to be very careful. So ultimately build up your own willpower and also know where you are headed to begin with. Once that is clear, then these question of what is right and wrong will always be there. It's a question of then following that right answer.
There's a very nice question which has come forward. From human beings, we have become human doings. How to understand and go back to that beingness and understand to become a human being. What would you recommend for that, Mr. Sidhu? That is the question from one of our viewers, and he's an anonymous caller.
I think it's a very, very interesting question, and I think the closest answer which I was able to find on my internet research is that we are not really, normally the default is that we are material beings trying to get onto a spiritual journey. That means you're material, we are doing this, we are making a living, we are body and it comprises atoms and so on, and it's working in a system. And you are trying to, get towards spiritualism. So the normal default that we believe is, or we are led to believe is, that we are material beings on a spiritual journey. So you got to do your daily chores, and the spiritualism is a kind of a byproduct of that. If you can find time for that and something remains, do it. But the essence and core essence of the Vedas and the core essence of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, which is just 700 verses, distilled human wisdom, and Shri Guru Granth Sahib also gives you a very clear signal that we are actually not material beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings. It's the other way around. You're spiritual beings on a material journey.
That's right.
Why? Because this is the only way your spirit, your Atman, by itself it cannot travel. Assisted by the body-mind complex and your buddhi and vivek, it traverses this terrestrial landscape, and its ultimate mission is to seek salvation and get out of this vicious circle of life and death. But in doing so, leave a legacy. A legacy not in terms of an estate to your kids, but a legacy of good thoughts, memories in the minds of the people with whom you interact and who will perhaps continue to remember after you're no longer there. So I think instead of we need to have a change of paradigm. We should regard ourselves as spiritual beings doing our karma yoga, but the ultimate mission is there, rather than our being, material beings going about our business and saying, hey, I'm going to slot out half an meditation. That perhaps could help us.
Absolutely. And Gurbani also says, Man tu jot swaroop hai, apna mool pahchan.
Absolutely. I mean, this is that. Man here is used as an Atman in that sense. You're like that Jot. And apna mool, where do you come from? You are a part and parcel of the Paramatma, the Nirankar, the universal consciousness. So it is, and this this sense of I has to be distinguished in the Sikh philosophy from the home. The I is not the ego. Very often the ego, home, it's me, I, me, myself. This is my body. This is my estate, this is my property, these are my kids. So we have to be very careful that it is not to be confused with that sense of ego. The Atman, the inner substratum, is different from the ego which seeks possession of material things, including a body and senses.
Ji. So, Mr. Sidhu, from this chariot analogy which you have brought forward today is really very interesting. One thing which you would like to say towards the end, which we need to grasp, which can change our perspective and make us understand why we are here, what our purpose is, what would that be?
I think you need to find that purpose. And as I said, that once you ask that question, 50% of your spiritual journey is already complete, because many people get through life saying that I don't have time, where is the time for me to ask these questions? So what I'm here for? Then of course, these are constraints of the modern life. Are you doing what you love? Is it able to make you a living? Is it able to do something good for the society? Are you passionate about it? At the intersection of these four circles, Japanese have got a concept called ikigai, but basically is getting your dharma, what syncs with you, resonates with you, is also good for the world. Once you're able to do, of course, there is a hierarchy. I mean, a person who's unable to, earn a square meal may not be able to, pursue those higher pursuits. But once you get there, once you are well settled, you are making a reasonable living, then eventually, unless you pursue this, even if you have the entire universe, Sagal Srishta ka Raja Dukhiya, as Gurwani the Vishonda, even if you have you're the king of the entire universe, you still would be unhappy, because deep inside you would be a hollow and a vacuum that, what all is this in aid of, and ultimately it is going to remain here.
Absolutely.
So that's what we need to constantly remember and remind ourselves.
Very true, and that yearning has to be there, that you want to understand why you are here, what is your purpose, and what legacy would you like to leave. Mr. Sidhu, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much. Till next month, we'll get you back with another topic on self-introspection and how to understand our purpose. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਕਰਨਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੱਧੂ IAS, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਤੋਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ। ਹਰ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਤਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਐਨਾਲੋਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹ ਸੀ ਚੈਰੀਅਟ ਐਨਾਲੋਜੀ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇਹ ਯਤਨ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਥ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਮੰਡੇ ਟੂ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦੇ 7 ਵਜੇ ਪੈਸੀਫਿਕ ਸਟੈਂਡਰਡ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਿਕ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੋ, ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਐਸਾ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਜੋ ਆ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਸਪਾਇਰ ਕਰ ਸਕੇ, ਐਜੂਕੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕੇ ਤੇ ਇੰਪਾਇਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰਨਾ 6046037555 ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਈਮੇਲ ਜ਼ਰੀਏ harpreetsingh@gmail.com. And also, if you are liking this program, please subscribe on YouTube, The Harpreet Singh Show, or on Facebook, The Harpreet Singh Show. And as Mr. Sidhu also has his own channel, it's KBS Sidhu IAS. So you can subscribe there also, and he has many talks which he has delivered before also on various topics. So it's again a pleasure to have him here today. Thank you very much to you, so that you spare your valuable time and be a part of this program. Thank you. Have a safe evening. Enjoy yourself and keep safe.
Karen thought she won a gift card, but we had a much bigger surprise for her. We rise by lifting others. Basant Motors.
ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੇ ਸੌਮਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਆਯੁਰਵੇਦਾ ਰਾਹੀਂ 5000 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਬਣਾਏ ਗਏ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਪਰੂਵਡ 100% ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਆਯੁਰਵੈਦਿਕ ਡਾਇਟਰੀ ਸਪਲੀਮੈਂਟਸ ਦਾ ਲਾਭ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸਟ੍ਰੈਸ, ਐਂਗਜ਼ਾਇਟੀ, ਇਨਸੋਮਨੀਆ, ਬਲੱਡ ਸ਼ੂਗਰ, ਕਿਡਨੀ, ਬਲੈਡਰ, ਹਾਜ਼ਮਾ, ਆਈਸਾਈਟ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਦਾ ਆਰਗੈਨਿਕ ਇਲਾਜ, ਜੋੜਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਦਰਦਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਰੀਰਕ ਮਸਾਜ ਲਈ ਕਈ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੇ ਆਯੁਰਵੈਦਿਕ ਤੇਲ ਵੀ ਉਪਲਬਧ ਹਨ। ਹੋਲਸੇਲ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਲਈ ਕਾਲ 604 628 2003।
ਸ਼ਾਈਨ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਡੈਂਟਲ ਕਲੀਨਿਕ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਤਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਦੇਖਰੇਖ ਹੇਠ ਆਧੁਨਿਕ ਮਸ਼ੀਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਹੀ ਕੇਅਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰਨਾ, ਕਰਾਊਨਸ, ਬ੍ਰਿਜਸ, ਡੈਂਟਲ ਇੰਪਲਾਂਟਸ, ਰੂਟ ਕਨਾਲ, ਡੈਂਚਰਸ, ਬੌਂਡਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਵਨੀਰਸ, ਐਕਸਟ੍ਰੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ, ਬੋਨ ਕ੍ਰੈਫਟਿੰਗ ਆਦਿ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹਨ। ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਡੈਂਟਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਮਾਹਰ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਲੀ ਬਿੱਲ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਚਾਰਜ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਫॉर ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਸ਼ਾਈਨ ਐਂਡ ਸਮਾਈਲ 604 503 03 20 ਤੇ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ। ਕਿੰਗ ਜਾਰਜ ਸੁਪਰ ਸਟੋਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ, ਯੂਨਿਟ 370, 7488 ਕਿੰਗ ਜਾਰਜ ਬੁਲੇਵਾਰਡ, ਸਰੀ।
ਘਰ ਇੱਕ ਐਸੀ ਥਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਰ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣੀ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਸੁਨਹਿਰੀ ਪਲ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰਿਆ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਤੀਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਦ ਕਿਸੇ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਨੂੰ ਸਜੇ ਹੋਏ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਬਦਲਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ। ਨਵੇਂ ਘਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਰੇਮਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਨਿਸ਼ਿੰਗ ਤੱਕ, ਡ੍ਰੇਪਰੀ, ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਡੈਕੋਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਸੈਸਰੀਜ਼ ਤੱਕ, ਤੁਸੀਂ SK ਹੋਮ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੁਪਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਹਕੀਕਤ 'ਚ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰੋ ਸੰਦੀਪ ਕੌਰ 6048259295।